I killed him, yes." The courtroom exploded as Victoria Dawson's scream echoed off the walls. Her perfectly composed mask had finally shattered, revealing the monster beneath. "I gave him poison. He was dying anyway. I just hurried it along, and I'd do it again." The judge's gavel slammed down. Security rushed forward. But Victoria's wild eyes found only one person in that crowded room: Claire, the stepdaughter she had tried to destroy. But 3 weeks earlier, Claire Dawson wasn't standing in a courtroom as a victor. She was crawling through the dust barefoot and bleeding left to die on a Wyoming road. This is the story of how she rose from the ashes. Ashford Creek, Wyoming Territory, July 15, 1885. The dirt road stretched 3 miles into town, and Claire Dawson had crawled the first 100 feet of it on her hands and knees. Dust caked her split lip. Blood mixed with sweat and tears, creating muddy tracks down her face that the Wyoming sun baked dry almost as fast as they formed. Her cotton dress, the same thin thing she had worn to serve breakfast that morning, clung to her back in patches of moisture. The fabric tore further with each movement forward. 20 feet behind her, the door of the house stood closed, the house that should have been hers, the house her father built with his own hands before she was born. Through that door, Victoria Dawson watched from the parlor window. Claire knew she was watching. Victoria always watched. Claire's fingers dug into the hard-packed earth. Pull, drag, move forward. The motion had become automatic, a rhythm born of pure survival instinct. Her mind floated somewhere above her body, detached, observing this broken thing that used to be a woman. She thought of her father. Robert Dawson would have been ashamed to see his daughter like this. No, Robert Dawson would have put a bullet in Victoria's head for doing this to his child. But Robert Dawson was 5 years dead, and his daughter was learning what it meant to be truly alone. "Victoria, please." The words came out cracked, barely recognizable as human speech. Claire didn't even know why she bothered. The door remained closed. "I have nowhere to go." Silence answered her. The kind of silence that has weight and texture. The kind that presses down on your chest and makes breathing an act of will. Then Victoria's voice drifted out through the window, sweet as poisoned honey. "Then I suppose you should have thought of that before you tried to steal from me, dear." The door opened. For one desperate moment, Claire felt hope flare in her chest. Foolish, idiotic hope. Victoria stepped onto the porch, and the smile on her face was the cruelest thing Claire had ever seen. Not anger, not hatred, just cold, satisfied amusement. "Do try not to die before you reach town," Victoria said. "The buzzards make such a mess of the road." The door closed. The lock clicked. The sound of that lock, that tiny mechanical action, somehow represented the sum total of Claire's existence. Locked out, locked away, never quite belonging to the place that should have been home. Claire pressed her forehead against the dirt and felt something inside her crack. Not break. She had broken a long time ago. This was something else. This was the moment when breaking becomes a choice, when you either stand up or let the earth take you. "Get up, Ellie girl." Her father's voice in her memory, rough and warm and impossibly distant. "Dawsons don't quit." "I'm trying, Papa," she whispered into the dust. "I'm trying." She got her feet under her. Her legs shook like a newborn calf's, but they held. Barely. Her right foot screamed in pain where the rock had torn open the sole. Her left ankle rolled slightly with each step, swollen from the beating Victoria had given her that morning. But she could walk, one foot in front of the other. That was all. Just keep moving. The sun climbed higher. July in Wyoming Territory was not forgiving, and the road offered no shade, no mercy, no relief. Claire's throat felt like she had swallowed sand. When had she last had water yesterday? The day before, Victoria controlled the well, controlled the kitchen, controlled every drop and crumb in that house, in the house that should have been Claire's. The thought should have made her angry, but anger required energy she didn't have. Instead, she felt a kind of numb acceptance settling over her like a shroud. This was how she would die. On this road, under this sun, Alone. No. The rebellion came from somewhere deep, some part of her that Victoria hadn't managed to break yet. Claire stumbled but caught herself, kept walking. The town of Ashford Creek lay 3 miles ahead. If she could just reach it, if someone would help her. But even as the thought formed, Claire knew better. She had lived in Ashford Creek her entire life, 26 years of knowing these people and 5 years of watching them turn away while Victoria destroyed her piece by piece. They had seen the bruises. Mrs. Foster at the general store had seen them. She had looked right at the purple fingerprints on Claire's wrists and asked about the weather. They had heard Victoria's stories at church every Sunday. Poor Victoria trying so hard to care for her troubled stepdaughter. That ungrateful girl who didn't appreciate everything her stepmother sacrificed. The whole congregation had nodded along, sympathetic to Victoria's burden. They had watched Claire grow thinner, quieter, smaller. Had watched her fade from the bright girl who used to ride her father's horses to the ghost who shuffled through town with her eyes on the ground. And they had done nothing. Because Victoria was respectable. Victoria was wealthy. Victoria was the grieving widow who had taken on the responsibility of Robert Dawson's difficult child. And Claire was just the problem everyone wished would disappear. Well, she was disappearing now. The sound of hoofbeats reached her before she saw the horse. Slow, steady, coming up the road from town. Claire didn't turn around. What was the point? It would be someone from Ashford Creek, someone who would ride right past her without stopping, someone who would mention to Victoria that they had seen her stepdaughter wandering the road like a vagrant, and wasn't that sad? But what could anyone do? The hoofbeat slowed. "Miss." The voice was male, unfamiliar, deep and measured with something in it that might have been concern. Claire kept walking. 1 foot, then the next. "Miss, are you all right?" The absurdity of the question almost made her laugh. Was she all right? She was barefoot, bleeding, half-starved, walking toward a town full of people who would sooner spit on her than help her. Was she all right? She was magnificent. "Miss." Closer now. The horse had stopped. "I need you to stop walking." Something in his tone made her pause. Not a command exactly, more like a request from someone who wasn't used to being ignored. Claire turned slowly, her vision swimming slightly from dehydration and exhaustion. The man on horseback was tall, even sitting down. Broad shoulders carried the dust of long travel. His hat was pulled low against the sun, shadowing most of his face, but she could see his eyes. Brown, warm, concerned. And she could see the scar. A pale line ran from his left temple down across his cheekbone. Old, healed long ago, but still there, still visible, a mark that spoke of violence survived. The man tipped his hat, the gesture automatic bred into him by years of frontier courtesy. "Ma'am." Claire stared at him. Speech seemed beyond her capacity. "You look like you could use some help." "I'm fine." The lie came automatically worn smooth by 5 years of repetition. "With respect, ma'am, you don't look fine." His eyes moved over her face, cataloging damage. "You look like you're about to fall down." "Then I'll fall down." Claire's voice came out harder than she intended. "It's not your concern." "It became my concern when I saw you." 5 years. 5 years since anyone had said anything like that to her. 5 years since anyone had made her problems their own. 5 years since anyone had looked at her like she was worth stopping for. Claire felt her throat tighten. No, she would not cry. Not in front of this stranger. Not in front of anyone. The man swung down from his horse in one fluid motion, landing in the dust beside her. Up close she could see more details. The lines around his eyes that spoke of squinting into too many sunrises. The calluses on his hands that meant hard work. The careful way he moved like someone who had learned to be ready for violence at any moment. "Someone hurt you?" It wasn't a question. Claire said nothing. His gaze moved from her face to her wrists, where Victoria's fingers had left marks like brands, to her bare feet, to the dried blood on her lip. His jaw tightened. "I fell." The second lie as automatic as the first. That's so. He didn't believe her. His voice made that clear. Funny kind of fall that leaves fingerprints. Claire looked away. What did this stranger want from her? Why couldn't he just ride on and leave her to her slow death in peace? The man reached for the canteen hanging from his saddle. He held it out to her. Drink. I don't need your charity. Drink, please. That single word, that small please, cracked something in her defenses. When was the last time someone had said please to her? When was the last time anyone had asked instead of ordered? Claire took the canteen. The water was warm, tasting of leather and metal, but it was clean and wet, and the most beautiful thing she had ever experienced. She drank until her stomach cramped with the sudden fullness, until the man gently took the canteen back. "Slow down," he said. "You'll make yourself sick." Claire wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. "Thank you." "Where are you headed?" "Town, Ashford Creek." She gestured vaguely down the road. He nodded. "That's another 4 miles." "I know." "You planning to walk it barefoot?" Claire looked down at her feet as if seeing them for the first time. Blood and dirt and blisters that had burst and reformed. Her toes were the wrong color. She hadn't let herself look before. Looking made it real. "I don't have much choice." "Sure you do." He gestured toward his horse. "I can give you a ride." Every instinct Claire had developed over 5 years of surviving Victoria screamed at her to refuse. Accept nothing from anyone. Owe no one. Trust no one. It was the only way to stay safe. But she was so tired, and her feet hurt so much. And this stranger with the kind eyes had already seen her at her worst. What did she have left to protect? "I don't know you." "No, ma'am, you don't." He met her eyes directly. "But I know what it looks like when someone's in trouble. And I know what it feels like to be in trouble with no one willing to help." Something flickered in his expression. Something old and painful that matched the scar on his face. "And you're willing to help a stranger." "I'm willing to not leave you on the side of the road in 100-degree heat with no shoes and no water." He paused. "I've seen enough people die when they didn't have to. I'm not adding to that count." Claire studied him, really looked at him for the first time. The scar, the shadows under his eyes, the way he held himself like a man who had seen things he couldn't unsee. "You were a soldier." "Yes, ma'am." "Which side?" "The one that won." No pride in his voice, no satisfaction, just fact. "Though some days I wonder if anyone really won that war." Claire made a decision. Maybe it was the dehydration talking. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was just that this stranger had shown her more kindness in 5 minutes than anyone in Ashford Creek had shown her in 5 years. "My name is Claire Dawson. My father owned a ranch about 3 miles back." "Owned?" "He died 5 years ago." The words came out flat. 5 years, and it still hurt to say. The man nodded slowly. "And the woman who did that to your face?" "My stepmother." Claire heard herself say the words like they belonged to someone else. "She threw me out this morning. Said I stole from her." "Did you?" "No." Claire's voice cracked. "I took bread from my own father's kitchen. Bread I baked with my own hands. And she called me a thief and threw me out with nothing." The man was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentle. "Get on the horse, Miss Dawson. I can't pay you. Did I ask for payment? No, but I can't just accept your help without—" "Get on the horse." His tone left no room for argument, but it wasn't unkind. "We'll figure out the rest later." He helped her mount his hands, careful and impersonal, touching her only where necessary to boost her into the saddle. Then he swung up behind her, maintaining a careful distance between their bodies. "Hold on to the saddle horn," he said. "I'll take it slow." They rode in silence for a while. The horse's steady gait was almost soothing after hours of walking. Claire felt herself swaying with exhaustion, her body finally recognizing that it was safe to let go. "Don't fall asleep," the man said from behind her. "I'm not." "You're listing to the left." I'm fine. The automatic response. You keep saying that. There was something that might have been amusement in his voice. Starting to think you don't know what fine means. Claire surprised herself by almost smiling. I know exactly what it means. I just haven't felt it in a while. How long's a while? 5 years. The man was quiet again. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer. That's a long time to not be fine. You get used to it. No, ma'am? His words were certain. You survive it. That's not the same as getting used to it. Claire turned her head slightly, trying to see his face. You sound like you know something about surviving. I know something about a lot of things I wish I didn't. They reached the outskirts of Ashford Creek just as the sun was starting its descent toward the western horizon. The town wasn't much. A main street with a general store, a saloon, a church, a blacksmith, and a handful of houses scattered around like dice thrown by a careless hand. But it was civilization, and right now civilization meant water and food, and maybe, just maybe, someone who would help. The man pulled the horse to a stop in front of the general store. You got people here, family, friends? Claire shook her head. Anyone who might take you in? No. What about the church? Preacher might help. The preacher's wife is Victoria's closest friend. Claire's voice was flat. She won't help me. The man muttered something under his breath that sounded like a curse. Then he dismounted and reached up to help Claire down. The moment her feet touched the ground, her legs buckled. He caught her, his arm strong and steady around her waist. Easy, I've got you. I'm sorry, I just... Don't apologize. He kept hold of her elbow, supporting her weight. When's the last time you ate? Claire had to think about it. Yesterday? Yesterday. He said the word like it personally offended him. All right, first things first. Food. He guided her toward the general store. The bell above the door jangled as they entered. Behind the counter, Margaret Foster looked up from her ledger. She was a woman in her 50s with iron-gray hair and eyes that had witnessed most of the secrets in Ashford Creek. Her face brightened when she saw the man. Nathan Reed. Haven't seen you in town for weeks. Nathan. So that was his name. Claire filed it away. Been busy, Mrs. Foster. Nathan nodded toward Claire. This young lady needs some help. Whatever she wants, put it on my account. Mrs. Foster's smile faded as she took in Claire's appearance. The recognition in her eyes was immediate. Claire Dawson. Claire lifted her chin, an automatic gesture of defiance that Victoria had beaten into her. Mrs. Foster. What on earth happened to you? I fell. The lie came out smooth as glass. Mrs. Foster's gaze moved from Claire to Nathan and back again. Something shifted in her expression, something that looked almost like shame. But she didn't challenge the lie, didn't ask the questions that needed asking. That was how it always worked in Ashford Creek. People saw, but they didn't look. They heard, but they didn't listen. I'll take some bread, Claire said quietly. And water, please. You'll take more than that. Nathan cut in before Mrs. Foster could respond. She needs a proper meal, ma'am. Something substantial. Claire opened her mouth to protest, but Nathan continued. I'm paying. It's not charity. It's common decency. Mrs. Foster hesitated. Then she nodded and disappeared into the back room. Claire sank onto a wooden crate near the window. Every muscle in her body ached. Her feet throbbed with a pain that had moved beyond sharp into something duller and more persistent. Her face hurt where Victoria had struck her. Nathan stood by the counter, arms crossed, watching the door like he expected trouble to walk through it at any moment. You don't have to stay, Claire said. You've done enough. I'll stay until I know you're settled somewhere safe. There's nowhere safe. Not for me, not in this town. Then we'll find somewhere else. We. Like they were in this together. Like her problems were his problems now. Like he wasn't going to just ride away and forget about the broken woman he had found on the road. Why? Claire asked. Why do you care what happens to me? Nathan was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with old grief. Because I've lost people I should have saved, and I won't make that mistake again. Not when I can do something about it." Claire's breath caught at the pain in his voice. "So that's why I stopped," Nathan said. "Because maybe helping you means their loss wasn't for nothing." Before Claire could respond, the door to the general store flew open hard enough to make the bell shriek. Victoria Dawson stood in the doorway, her face twisted with fury, barely contained beneath a veneer of respectability. "There you are." Claire's whole body went rigid. Her hands started shaking. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but there was nowhere to go. Nathan stepped forward, putting himself between Claire and the door. "Can I help you, ma'am?" Victoria's cold eyes swept over him dismissively. "This doesn't concern you. I'm here for my stepdaughter. Doesn't look like she wants to go with you." "What Claire wants is irrelevant." Victoria's voice could have frozen fire. "She's under my guardianship until she's 27 or married. That's the law. Guardianship doesn't give you the right to hit her." Victoria's smile was ice. "I don't know what lies she's told you, but Claire has always been prone to dramatics. She fell this morning. I tried to help her and she ran off." "That's not true." Claire's voice was barely a whisper. "Of course she'd say that." Victoria shook her head, performing grief for Mrs. Foster, who had emerged from the back room. "She's been troubled ever since her father died. I've done everything I can for her, but some people simply can't be helped." "She's lying." Claire gripped the edge of the crate, her knuckles white. "She threw me out. She hit me. You see what I mean?" Victoria's voice dripped with false sympathy. "The poor girl doesn't even know what's real anymore." Nathan hadn't moved. His voice stayed calm, steady. "I saw her on the road, ma'am, 3 miles from here. Barefoot, bleeding, no water. In this heat she could have died. Then perhaps she should have thought about that before she ran off. She didn't run off. You threw her out." Victoria's mask flickered, just for a second, just long enough for Claire to see the rage underneath. "I don't know who you are, but you're interfering in family business. I suggest you step aside before I call the sheriff." "Call him." Nathan didn't flinch. "I'd be real interested to hear what he thinks about a woman leaving her stepdaughter to die on a dusty road." The silence that followed was terrible. Mrs. Foster stood frozen behind the counter, her face pale. Other customers in the store had stopped what they were doing, watching the confrontation with fascinated discomfort. But no one spoke up. No one intervened. No one took Claire's side. Of course they didn't. They never did. Victoria straightened her spine. "Claire, come home, now. We can discuss this like civilized people. I'm not going back there. You don't have a choice." "Yes." Claire stood on shaking legs. "I do." She didn't know where the strength came from. Maybe it was Nathan's presence, solid and unyielding, between her and her stepmother. Maybe it was 5 years of rage finally finding an outlet. Maybe she was just too tired to be afraid anymore. "I'm not your prisoner, Victoria. I'm not your servant, and I'm not going to let you hurt me anymore." Victoria's eyes went flat, cold. "You'll regret this." "Maybe, but I'll regret going back with you more." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Victoria smiled. That same smile she had worn when she locked Claire out of the house. The smile that said she had already won and everything else was just details. "Very well." She turned to address the watching crowd. "You all see what I'm dealing with. I've opened my home to this girl for 5 years, sacrificed everything to care for my dead husband's difficult child. And this is how she repays me. With lies, with accusations, with behavior that would shame any decent family." She looked directly at Nathan. "And you, sir. Whatever she's promised you, whatever stories she's told you, I'd recommend you walk away now. Claire has a history of latching on to men who show her kindness. It never ends well for anyone involved." The implication hung in the air, ugly and unmistakable. Claire felt the blood drain from her face. "That's not true. I never—" "Don't." Nathan's voice was quiet but firm. "Don't dignify that with a response." He turned to face the room. Every person in it. Mrs. Foster behind the counter, the farmer by the feed bags, the young mother with her child, every single person who had watched Claire Dawson disappear over 5 years and done nothing to stop it. "I don't know what's happened in this town," Nathan said. "I don't know what kind of people stand by while someone suffers, but I know what I saw today. I saw a woman abandoned on the road to die, and I know what I see right now. A woman who's been terrorized for so long she flinches when anyone moves too fast." His eyes landed on Victoria. "I don't care about your reputation, ma'am. I don't care about your money or your standing in this community. What I care about is that young woman right there who deserves a hell of a lot better than anything she's gotten from you or this town." Victoria's smile had frozen on her face. "You'll regret this." "Probably," Nathan shrugged. "Wouldn't be the first time. Miss Dawson, you ready to go?" Claire stared at him. This stranger who had appeared out of nowhere and stood up for her when no one else would, who had called her worth something in a room full of people who had written her off years ago. "Where?" she asked. "My place. It's not much, but it's safe. You can stay as long as you need to figure out what comes next." Victoria laughed, sharp and brittle. "Oh, this is rich. You're going to take her home with you. And what will people say about that, I wonder? A young unmarried woman living with a strange man." "I don't give a damn what people say." "Maybe you should. Maybe Miss Dawson should. Because when this little adventure of hers fails, and it will fail, she'll have nothing left. No reputation, no family, no one willing to take her in. She's got me." 3 words, simple and certain. Claire felt something crack inside her, something that had been frozen for years. "Let's go," she said. Nathan offered her his arm. Claire took it. Her legs steadied. Together they walked past Victoria, past Mrs. Foster, past every person who had failed her for 5 years. At the door, Claire paused. She looked back at her stepmother. "I know what you did. To my father's will. I know, and I'm going to prove it." Victoria's face went white. Then they were outside in the heat and the dust and the blinding Wyoming sun. Claire was walking away from everything she had ever known. She should have been terrified. Instead, for the first time in 5 years, she felt something like hope. Nathan helped her onto his horse and swung up behind her. "Hold on." Claire gripped the saddle horn. Her hands had stopped shaking. "Where exactly is your place?" she asked. "About 7 miles northwest. Small ranch, nothing fancy." He paused. "I've got a hired man, Ben Hayes, and there's a boy, Davy. You won't be alone with me, for your reputation." Claire almost laughed. "After what Victoria just said in there, I don't think I have one left to protect." "Then we'll build you a new one based on who you actually are, not what she made you out to be." The horse started moving. Ashford Creek fell away behind them. Claire didn't look back. "Nathan," she said. "Yes. Thank you for stopping today, really." He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he said, "I told you about my wife, my son. That's not all of it." "You don't have to tell me." "I know." He took a breath. "When I got back from the war, I wasn't right. The things I'd seen, the things I'd done. I came home, but part of me was still there. In the blood, in the mud, in the dying." Claire stayed silent, letting him speak. "My wife, Emily, she was patient, so patient. She loved me through the nightmares and the silence and the times I couldn't be the man she deserved. And then she got sick." His voice roughened. 3 days. That's how long the fever took to kill her. 3 days of watching her burn up from the inside while I held her hand and couldn't do a damn thing to help. I'm sorry. David went next, my boy. He was 3 years old and he called for his mama at the end. Called for her and I couldn't even tell him she was already gone. Claire felt tears on her cheeks. She didn't wipe them away. After they died, I wanted to die too. Spent 2 years trying to drink myself into the grave. Then one day I woke up and I realized something. What? That dying wouldn't bring them back. But living might let me do some good. Might let me save someone else even if I couldn't save them. He shifted behind her. So that's why I stopped. Because I couldn't save Emily. I couldn't save David. But maybe I can help you. Maybe that's why I'm still here. Claire didn't know what to say. What could anyone say to that kind of pain? so she said the only thing that felt true. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," a hint of something lighter in his voice. "You haven't seen my cooking." She surprised herself by laughing, a small sound rusty from disuse but real. They rode on as the sun sank lower, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and gold. Nathan's ranch came into view as twilight settled over the land. It wasn't much to look at. A small house, a barn, a few outbuildings scattered around, fences that needed mending. But to Claire, it looked like salvation. A man stepped out of the barn as they approached, old, around 67, with skin weathered like old leather and eyes that had seen too much and judged too little. His hair was white against his dark skin. "Got the spare room ready," he said simply, as if he had been expecting them. "How'd you figure that Ben?" Nathan asked as he dismounted. The old man's mouth twitched. "You left this morning looking for trouble. Trouble usually looks like a woman in need." Claire should have been offended. Instead, she felt something loosen in her chest. This man wasn't pretending she was fine, wasn't acting like her battered face was normal. "I'm Claire Dawson." "Ben Hayes." He tipped his hat. "You hungry, Miss Dawson?" "She hasn't eaten since yesterday," Nathan said before Claire could answer. Ben's expression darkened. "Then let's fix that." A small figure emerged from the shadows near the barn. A boy, maybe 8 years old, too serious for his age, big brown eyes that had seen too many strangers come and go to be surprised anymore. His clothes were clean but patched in multiple places. "That's Davy," Ben said. "Son of a friend who passed last winter. Boy helps around the place." Davy looked at Claire without fear or curiosity, just observation. "Ma'am," he said, ducking his head. Claire's voice came out softer than she intended. "Hello, Davy." Inside the house was simple but clean. Ben moved around the small kitchen with practiced efficiency while Nathan disappeared to tend to his horse. Claire sat at the rough wooden table, and Davy settled on a stool in the corner watching her with those old eyes. Ben set a plate in front of her. Beans, bread, dried meat, simple food, real food. Claire took a bite. The bread was stale. The beans were oversalted. It was the best meal she had had in 5 years. "How long you know Nathan?" she asked Ben between bites. 3 years. He found me in Cheyenne half dead from a beating." Ben sat down across from her. "Some men didn't like the color of my skin." Claire's hands stilled on the bread. "Nathan didn't ask questions," Ben continued. "Didn't care where I came from or what I'd done. Just loaded me in his wagon and brought me here." His weathered face creased in something that might have been a smile. "That man saved my life, same as he saved yours today." "He told you." "Didn't have to. I know what running looks like. I've done enough of it." Claire took another bite. The food sat heavy and good in her stomach. Real sustenance for the first time in she couldn't remember how long. From his corner, Davy spoke up. "You gonna stay?" Everyone looked at the boy. He didn't flinch under their attention. "I don't know yet," Claire answered honestly. Davy nodded as if this made perfect sense. "House feels less empty when there's a lady around." Ben's voice came out rougher than before. "Yeah, son, it does." Nathan came back in, pausing at the sight of Claire's tear-stained face. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing, just pulled out a chair and sat down. "We need to talk about what happens next," he said quietly. "Your stepmother isn't going to let this go." "I know. She'll come for you, or send someone." "I know." Nathan leaned forward. "What did you mean back there about your father's will?" Claire's hands curled into fists on the table. This was it. The moment where she either trusted these people or kept running for the rest of her life. "My father left everything to me. The land, the house, the money, everything." Nathan and Ben exchanged a look. "Victoria told me he changed it before he died, made her my guardian until I turned 27 or married, said that's what the law required." "And you don't believe her?" Nathan asked. "I believed her for 5 years." Claire's voice hardened. "But this morning when she threw me out she said something. She said I would never see a penny of what should be mine. Not what is mine. What should be. You think she forged the will? I think she's been lying since the day my father died. I think she's been stealing my inheritance and using it to live like a queen while I starved in my own home. Can you prove it? Maybe. My father's best friend, Dr. Thomas Bradford, was there when the will was signed. If anyone knows what it really said, it's him. Then we talk to Dr. Bradford tomorrow. It's not that simple. Claire's voice cracked. Victoria has spent 5 years making everyone in town think I'm unstable. Even if he believes me, even if he knows the truth, why would he risk his standing for someone everyone already thinks is crazy? Nathan was quiet for a moment. Then he stood. Get some rest. We'll figure this out in the morning. Nathan, you've been through hell today, Claire. You're exhausted. You're hurt. You're scared. None of that is going to help us think clearly. His voice softened. Tomorrow, I promise we'll make a plan. Claire wanted to argue, wanted to push forward, to fight, to do something other than sit and wait. But he was right. Her body was screaming for rest. Her mind was fog and fragments. Okay, she whispered. Tomorrow. Ben showed her to the spare room. Small, simple, clean. A narrow bed with worn blankets. A window that looked out over nothing but empty land and stars starting to appear in the darkening sky. You need anything, you holler, Ben said. I'm in the cabin out back. Nathan's in the main room. Thank you, Ben. Don't thank me yet. A ghost of a smile crossed his weathered face. Nathan's a good man, but he's stubborn as a mule and twice as ornery. You'll need patience. Claire almost laughed. I've had plenty of practice. Ben left, closing the door softly behind him. Claire sat on the edge of the bed. Her feet throbbed. Her face ached. Her whole body felt like it had been wrung out and hung to dry. But she was alive. She was safe. And for the first time in 5 years, she had someone fighting in her corner. Several someones, actually. Nathan and Ben, and even young Davy with his serious eyes and simple truths. Claire lay down and closed her eyes. Sleep came fast. Heavy. Dreamless. The sleep of the exhausted. The sleep of survivors. But outside in the darkness, something was moving. Someone was riding toward the Reed Ranch with purpose. In his saddlebag, a piece of paper. An arrest warrant. With Claire Dawson's name on it. Charges of theft. Reward offered $500. And morning would bring choices that would change everything. Claire woke to the sound of voices. Sharp. Urgent. Male. For a moment she didn't know where she was. The ceiling above her was unfamiliar, the blanket rough against her skin. Then memory flooded back. Nathan Reed. The ranch. Safety. But the voices outside weren't safe. They carried tension like a physical weight. She sat up wincing as her battered body protested. Morning light slanted through the small window. She had slept through the night. When was the last time that had happened? Claire stood on unsteady legs and moved to the door, opening it just enough to see into the main room. Nathan stood near the front door, fully dressed, his posture rigid. Across from him, a man in his late 30s wearing a deputy's badge. The star caught the morning light. "Reed," the deputy was saying. "We need to talk." Nathan's voice came out level, controlled. "Talk, then." The deputy pulled a folded paper from his coat pocket. His hand shook slightly as he held it out. "I got a warrant for Claire Dawson." The world tilted. Claire gripped the door frame to keep from falling. Nathan didn't take the paper. "On what charges?" "Theft. Mrs. Victoria Dawson says her stepdaughter stole jewelry and money before she ran off. Valuable items. There's a detailed list." "That's a lie." "Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't." The deputy's face looked pained. "Either way, I got orders. From Judge Harmon himself." Nathan's jaw tightened visibly. "Judge Harmon is Victoria's cousin." "I know." The deputy looked down at the paper in his hand, looked back up. "Look, Reed, I know you, know your reputation. You're a fair man, honest. But this puts me in a hard position." "What's your name, deputy?" "Collins. Mark Collins." "Well, Deputy Collins, here's what I know." Nathan took a step forward, not threatening, just closing distance. I found that woman on the road yesterday, 3 miles from town, barefoot, bleeding, no water, no food, in 100-degree heat. She would have died if I hadn't stopped." Collins shifted his weight. "Mrs. Dawson says the girl ran off after stealing from her." "Mrs. Dawson is lying." "You got proof of that?" "I got a woman with fingerprint bruises on her wrists. I got a split lip and a black eye. I got bare feet torn to hell from walking on hot rocks." Nathan's voice stayed calm, but steel ran through it. "What I don't got is any jewelry or money. You want to search my property, deputy, go ahead. You won't find anything because there's nothing to find." Collins looked uncomfortable. He glanced past Nathan toward the hallway where Claire stood hidden. Did he see her? She couldn't tell. "Thing is, read Mrs. Dawson's got standing in this community. She's got Judge Harmon backing her claims, and I got a family to feed. I can't lose this job." The admission hung in the air between them. Collins looked ashamed of it, but he didn't take it back. "So you're going to arrest an innocent woman to keep your job?" "I'm going to follow the law, even when I don't like it." Collins met Nathan's eyes. "But here's what I'm thinking. I got this warrant, see, but I also got a whole list of places I need to check today. Lot of ground to cover. Might take me until tomorrow afternoon to get around to searching your place." Understanding passed between the two men. Nathan gave a small nod. "That's real conscientious of you, deputy, making sure you do a thorough job. Just trying to be professional." Collins folded the warrant and put it back in his pocket. "Course, if Miss Dawson was smart, she might use that time to consider her options. Maybe find some evidence to support her side of the story. I'll pass that along, if I see her." "You do that." Collins turned to leave, then paused. "Read. For what it's worth, I hope that girl's telling the truth. Because if Victoria Dawson did what I think she did, someone needs to stop her. Someone will." Collins left. The sound of his horse fading into the distance felt like a countdown clock starting. Claire stepped out of the hallway. Nathan turned to face her. "You heard?" "Yes." "We have less time than I thought." Nathan moved to the window, watching to make sure Collins was really gone. "He gave us until tomorrow afternoon. That's maybe 30 hours. Ben appeared from the back of the house, Davy trailing behind him. The old man's face was grim. "Heard the whole thing. We moving today?" "We don't have a choice." Nathan turned back to Claire. "You said Dr. Bradford knows about the real will." "He was there when my father signed it, 3 days before he died." "Then we go talk to him. This morning." "Victoria will have people watching." Claire's voice shook slightly. "She always knows everything that happens in town." "Then we'll be careful." Nathan crossed to her. "Claire, I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" She looked up at him. This man who had saved her life yesterday, who was risking his own freedom now to help her. She barely knew him, but trust wasn't about time. It was about character. "Yes." "Good. Ben saddle 2 horses. Davy, you stay here and keep watch. If anyone comes asking, you haven't seen us." Davy nodded solemnly. "I ain't seen nobody, Mr. Nathan." "That's right." Nathan looked at Claire. "You up for a ride?" Every part of her body hurt, but pain was familiar, pain she could handle. Losing this chance that she couldn't handle. "I'm ready." They rode carefully, avoiding the main road into Ashford Creek. Nathan knew the territory well, picking a path that kept them out of sight of the town until the last possible moment. Dr. Bradford's office sat on the eastern edge, far enough from Main Street that they could approach without being immediately visible. The doctor's house was modest, white paint peeling in places, a shingle hanging by the door that read, "Thomas Bradford, Physician." The windows were dark despite the morning hour. Nathan dismounted and helped Claire down. Her feet still hurt, but Ben had given her a pair of old boots that morning. They were too big, stuffed with rags to make them fit, but they were better than nothing. Nathan knocked. No answer. He knocked again, harder, finally shuffling footsteps from inside. The door opened a crack. A weathered face appeared, white hair wild, as if the man had just woken. Dr. Thomas Bradford was 70 if he was a day with eyes that had witnessed too many deathbeds. Nathan Reed. The doctor's voice was thin with age. What are you doing here? Need to talk to you, Doc. It's important. Bradford's eyes shifted past Nathan to Claire. Recognition flickered, followed immediately by something that looked like fear. Claire Dawson. Not a question. A statement of fact heavy with implications. Dr. Bradford. Claire stepped forward. Please, I need your help. I heard what happened. The charges Victoria filed. He shook his head. I'm sorry, but I can't get involved in this. You were my father's closest friend. I was. And Robert was a good man. But he's gone child. And I'm an old man who can't afford to make enemies. Please. Claire's voice broke. You know she's lying. You know what she is. Bradford's hand trembled on the door. Even if that's true, what can I do? Victoria has the law on her side. She has Judge Harmon. She has money and influence. I'm just an old doctor. You were there. Claire took another step closer. When my father signed his will. I know you were. Please, Dr. Bradford, just tell me what it said. The old man's face crumpled. For a long moment he just stood there trembling. Then he stepped back and opened the door wider. Get inside. Quickly. Before someone sees. The interior of the house smelled of medicine and old paper. Bradford led them to a back room away from the windows. His hands shook as he pulled the curtains closed. I was there, he said without preamble. 3 days before Robert died. The fever had him, but his mind was still clear. Sharp as ever, actually. He knew he didn't have long. Claire's throat tightened. She hadn't been allowed in her father's room those last days. Victoria had insisted she would upset him. He called me over specifically to witness the will, made me promise to make sure it was done right. Bradford sank into a chair. He wanted everything left to you, Claire, every acre of land, every dollar, the house, everything. No guardianship? None. You were 21. He said you were old enough to make your own decisions, said you had more sense than most men twice your age. A sad smile crossed Bradford's face. He was proud of you, so proud. Nathan had been standing quietly by the door. Now he spoke. What about Victoria? He left her a small amount, enough to live comfortably if she chose to leave, but the bulk of everything went to Claire. No conditions, no strings. Claire felt her legs go weak. Nathan moved quickly, catching her elbow and guiding her to a chair. So the will Victoria presented to the court, Nathan said, the one that made her Claire's guardian, is a forgery. Bradford said it flatly. It has to be. Robert never changed his mind. I was with him until the very end. There was no second will. The room spun. 5 years. 5 years of believing Victoria's lies. 5 years of thinking her father had abandoned her, had put a stranger in control of her life. Why didn't you say something? The question came out harsh, accusatory. Bradford flinched. I wanted to. God knows I wanted to. But Victoria came to me right after Robert died. She showed me the will she was going to file, told me that if I contradicted it, she would destroy me. She had letters, she said, letters that would ruin my practice, prove I had been giving Robert too much laudanum, hastening his death. Had you? No. But the letters looked real. I don't know how she forged them, but they were convincing enough to scare me. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. I'm ashamed. I've been ashamed every day for 5 years, but I was afraid. You're not afraid now? Nathan asked. I'm terrified, but I'm also 70 years old. I've got maybe 5 good years left, and I don't want to spend them living with this guilt. He looked at Claire. Your father was my best friend. I owe him better than silence. Can you testify? Claire asked. In court about what the real will said? I can, I will. Bradford paused. But my testimony alone might not be enough. Victoria will claim I'm senile, that my memory has failed. She'll bring in her own witnesses, people she's paid or threatened. We need the original will. Where would it be? Robert kept all his important papers in the study. There's a locked cabinet, 3rd drawer. Bradford's eyes met Claire's. I helped him file things there when he got too sick to do it himself. If the original still exists, that's where it would be. Nathan's voice was quiet, dangerous. Then we need to get into that house. That's breaking and entering, Bradford pointed out. It's Claire's house, her father's house. She's got more right to be there than Victoria does. The law won't see it that way. Then we don't get caught. Claire stood. Her whole body felt electric with purpose. There's a church social every Saturday evening. The whole town goes. Victoria never misses it. She uses it to maintain her reputation. Nathan looked at her. When's the next one? Tomorrow night. Claire's heart pounded. 6 to 8. The house will be empty. That's when Colin said he'd be back. Nathan's mind was clearly working through the logistics. We'd have to move fast. Get in, find the will, get out. Then ride straight for Cheyenne. Bypass Ashford Creek law entirely and go to the territorial judge. It's risky, Bradford said. Everything's risky at this point. Nathan turned to the old man. You and Doc, we might need someone to keep watch. Bradford hesitated for only a moment. I'm in. They were planning their next move when they heard it. Hoofbeats outside, multiple horses. Nathan moved to the window, peered through a gap in the curtains. His jaw tightened. We've got company. 3 riders. Don't recognize them. Claire's blood ran cold. Victoria's men. Maybe. Or bounty hunters after that $500 reward. Bradford went pale. There's a back door, through the kitchen. It leads to an alley. Nathan grabbed Claire's hand. Go. Now. They moved quickly and quietly through the house. Behind them, heavy footsteps on the front porch, a fist pounding on the door. Dr. Bradford, open up. We know the Dawson girl was seen coming this way. Bradford looked at Nathan and Claire. I'll stall them. You two run. Doc, go. I'm an old man. What are they going to do to me? Nathan hesitated for only a second. Then he pulled Claire through the kitchen and out the back door. They emerged into a narrow alley between buildings. Their horses were still tied out front. We can't go back for them, Nathan said, reading her mind. We run. They ran through the back streets of Ashford Creek, keeping to alleys and shadows. Claire's borrowed boots rubbed blisters on her heels, but she didn't slow down. Behind them, shouts. The sound of pursuit. They ducked behind a warehouse, pressing themselves against the wall. Claire's breathing came hard and fast. Nathan put a finger to his lips. 3 men ran past the alley entrance. Rough-looking, armed, definitely not town deputies. Bounty hunters, Nathan whispered. $500 is enough to bring out the worst types. Where do we go? Claire's voice shook. We can't go back to your ranch. They'll look there. Nathan thought for a moment. I know a place. Come on. He led her through a maze of back streets and empty lots until they reached the edge of town. There, hidden in a grove of cottonwood trees, was a small cabin, abandoned by the look of it. Old trapper's cabin, Nathan explained. Nobody's used it in years. We can hide here until dark, then make our way back to the ranch. Inside the cabin was dusty but dry. A single room with a fireplace and the remnants of furniture. Nathan checked to make sure no one had followed them, then barred the door. They sat on the floorbacks against the wall, catching their breath. I'm sorry, Claire said after a long silence. I didn't mean to bring all this trouble to you. You didn't bring anything. Victoria did this, not you. Still, you could have just ridden past me yesterday. I could have. Nathan looked at her. But I didn't, and I don't regret it. Even now, with bounty hunters after us. Especially now, because now I know for sure you were telling the truth. If Victoria's willing to pay that much money to get you back, she's definitely hiding something. Claire pulled her knees to her chest. What if we can't find the will? What if she destroyed it? Then we find another way. Dr. Bradford will testify. We'll build a case. We'll fight. We. Claire said the word softly. You keep saying we. That's because you're not alone in this anymore. Something passed between them in that dusty cabin, something that had been building since Nathan first stopped his horse on that dusty road. Claire felt it in her chest, warm and terrifying and real. Before she could examine the feeling too closely, Nathan stood. "We should rest while we can. Once it's dark, we'll need to move fast." They waited as the sun crawled across the sky. Waiting was torture. Every sound outside made Claire's heart race. Every bird call could have been a signal. Every snapping twig could have been footsteps. But no one came. Hours passed in tense silence. Finally, as the light began to fade, Nathan moved to the window. "We need to go soon, before it gets too dark to see the path." They slipped out of the cabin and made their way through the gathering dusk. Nathan knew the territory, leading them along creek beds and through stands of trees anywhere that provided cover. By the time they reached the ranch, full dark had fallen. Ben met them at the barn, relief clear on his weathered face. "Thank God, Davy and I were about to go looking for you." "We ran into some trouble," Nathan said. "Bounty hunters." "Figured as much. 3 men came by here about 2 hours ago. Davy told them he hadn't seen anyone. They didn't believe him, searched the place anyway. They find anything? Nothing to find, but they'll be back." Ben looked at Claire. "You all right, miss?" "I'm fine." The automatic response. Then more honestly, "I'm scared." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp." Ben jerked his head toward the house. "Come on, we need to talk." Inside, Davy sat at the table trying to look brave, but clearly shaken. When he saw Claire, relief flooded his young face. "Miss Claire, I didn't tell them nothing. Promise." Claire crossed to him and put a hand on his shoulder. "You did perfect, Davy. Thank you." The boy straightened with pride. They gathered around the table. Nathan laid out what they had learned from Dr. Bradford, about the real will, about Victoria's forgery, about the plan to break into the house during the church social. "That's tomorrow night," Ben said. "Collins will be coming here tomorrow afternoon." "I know. That's why we have to move fast." Nathan looked around the table. "This is dangerous. If we get caught, we're all going to jail. Maybe worse. So I need to know now. Are you all in?" Ben didn't hesitate. "I'm in. That woman needs to pay for what she's done." Davy raised his hand like he was in school. "I can help. I'm small. I can fit through windows if you need." Nathan smiled despite the tension. "Appreciate that, Davy, but this is too dangerous for you." "But I'm not scared." "I know you're not. That's why I trust you to stay here and keep watch. If anything goes wrong, you'll be our warning system." Davy considered this. "Like a lookout." "Exactly like a lookout. Most important job there is." The boy nodded, satisfied with his role. Claire spoke up. "I should tell you something else, something I didn't mention before." Everyone looked at her. "The morning my father died, I wanted to see him. Victoria wouldn't let me in the room. She said he was too sick, that seeing me would upset him." Claire's voice shook. "But I heard him calling for me. I heard him say my name, and Victoria told me I was imagining things." Ben's expression darkened. "You think she did something to him?" "I don't know, but Dr. Bradford said my father's mind was clear until the end, so why wouldn't Victoria let me see him?" Nathan's hands curled into fists on the table. "We need to know who else was in that house when your father died. Who else might have seen something?" "There was a housekeeper, Sarah Mitchell. She worked for my father for years, but she left right after the funeral. Victoria said she quit, but Sarah loved my father. I never understood why she would just leave." "Do you know where she went?" "Last I heard she was in Cheyenne, but that was years ago." "Cheyenne's 2 days' ride," Ben said. "We don't have that kind of time." "No," Nathan agreed. "But if we can get the will tomorrow night, we're riding to Cheyenne anyway. We can look for her then." They spent the rest of the evening making plans, reviewing the layout of the Dawson house, figuring out the best approach, planning for contingencies. As the night deepened, Claire found herself on the porch, staring out at the darkness. The stars were impossibly bright this far from town. She used to love looking at stars with her father. He would point out constellations and tell her stories about the heroes they were named for. The door opened behind her. Nathan stepped out, 2 cups in his hands. He offered her one, coffee still hot. Couldn't sleep, he asked. Too much to think about. Nathan leaned against the porch railing. Claire, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. All right. Are you sure you want to do this tomorrow night, breaking into that house? It changes everything. There's no going back after that. If you want to walk away, if you want to just leave Wyoming and start over somewhere else, I'll help you do that. No judgment. Claire considered the question. Really considered it. She could run. Take Nathan's offer. Start a new life somewhere far from Victoria and Ashford Creek and all the pain of the last 5 years. But running meant Victoria won. Running meant her father's legacy stayed in the hands of a woman who had probably murdered him. Running meant every other person Victoria hurt in the future would be partially Claire's fault for not stopping her. I'm sure, Claire said. This ends tomorrow night, one way or another. Nathan nodded. Then we do it together. They stood in silence for a while, drinking coffee and watching the stars. Can I ask you something? Claire said finally. Anything. Your wife, Emily. Would she have approved of you helping me? Nathan was quiet for so long, Claire thought maybe she had overstepped. Then he spoke, his voice thick with old emotion. Emily believed that people were put in our paths for a reason. She believed that if you had the power to help someone and you didn't, that was the worst kind of sin. He turned to look at Claire. She would have stopped for you that day. She would have brought you home. She would have fought for you just like I am. So yeah, I think she'd approve. Claire felt tears sting her eyes. I wish I could have met her. She would have liked you. You've got the same kind of strength she had, the kind that doesn't quit even when quitting would be easier. I don't feel strong. That's because you're still in it. Strength always looks different from the inside. Nathan drained his coffee. Come on, you need to sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Claire followed him inside. In her small room, she lay on the narrow bed and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow night, everything would change. Either they would get the proof they needed and Claire would reclaim her life, or they would fail and lose everything. She thought about her father, about the house he had built, about the land he had worked, about the legacy he had wanted to leave her. I won't let her win, Papa, Claire thought. I promise. Sleep finally took her, and for the first time in years she dreamed of better days to come. But outside in the darkness, danger gathered. Deputy Collins was not the only lawman who knew about the warrant, and Victoria's reach was long. Before the sun rose again, Claire and her unlikely allies would face a choice that would test everything they believed about justice, loyalty, and the price of freedom. The game was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. When Claire woke the next morning, the house was already alive with activity. She could hear voices from the main room, male voices, tense. She dressed quickly and emerged to find Nathan and Ben standing by the window looking out at the road. Davy sat at the table, his young face tight with worry. "What's wrong?" Claire asked. Nathan turned. His expression was grim. "We've got visitors. Someone just rode up the road toward town, fast, like they were in a hurry." "You think they saw us?" "Don't know, but we need to assume Victoria knows we're planning something." Ben crossed his arms. "Question is, what's she going to do about it?" As if in answer, the sound of hoofbeats reached them. Multiple horses, coming from the direction of town. Nathan moved quickly. "Claire, get in the back room, now." "But, now." Claire ran for her room, but she left the door cracked, watching through the gap. The riders pulled up outside. 5 men, armed. One of them dismounted and approached the house. He pounded on the door. Nathan opened it, his hand resting casually on the gun at his hip. "Help you, gentlemen?" The lead man was big, scarred, the kind of man who made his living through violence. "We're looking for a woman, Claire Dawson. Heard she might be here." "Heard wrong." "That's so, because we got information says different." The man spat tobacco juice into the dirt. "Got a warrant for her arrest, and a nice reward for bringing her in." "Already told you, she's not here." "Mind if we look around?" "I do mind, actually. This is private property. You got no right to search it without proper legal authority." The man's hand moved toward his gun. "We got all the authority we need right here." In one smooth motion, Nathan drew his weapon and aimed it at the man's chest. "And I got the authority to defend my property. Now you and your friends can turn around and ride back to town, or we can settle this another way. Your choice." For a long moment no one moved. Claire held her breath. Then another voice called out from the road. "That's enough." Deputy Collins rode up, his badge glinting in the morning sun. He looked at the bounty hunters with disgust. "You boys are operating outside the law here. I'm the only one with legal authority to execute that warrant, and I say these men haven't done anything wrong." The lead bounty hunter glared at Collins. "We got as much right as you do." "No, you don't." Collins's hand went to his own weapon. "Now I'm going to ask you once politely to leave these people alone. You don't want to know what happens if I have to ask twice." The bounty hunters exchanged looks. 5 against 2 weren't great odds, but 5 against 2 when one of those two was the law changed the math. "This ain't over," the lead man said. "Yeah, it is." Collins didn't move until all 5 men had mounted up and ridden away. Then he turned to Nathan. "We need to talk. Inside." Nathan holstered his weapon and stepped aside. Collins entered, removing his hat. "You can come out, Miss Dawson," the deputy said without looking toward the back room. "I know you're here." Claire emerged slowly. Collins studied her, really looked at her for the first time. His face softened when he saw the healing bruises, the marks on her wrists. "Jesus," he muttered. "She really did that to you." Claire said nothing, just lifted her chin. Collins sighed. "Look, I came here to warn you. Victoria knows you're planning something. Don't ask me how she knows. That woman has ears everywhere, but she's got men watching the roads. She's hired more bounty hunters, and she's gotten Judge Harmon to move up your hearing." "When?" Nathan asked. "Day after tomorrow, in Ashford Creek, under Judge Harmon." Collins looked at Claire. "You show up for that hearing without proof of your innocence, you're going to jail. And once you're in jail, Victoria will make sure you never get out." "Then we get proof," Claire said. "How you got witnesses? You got evidence." "We will. Tomorrow night." Collins closed his eyes. "You're going to break into her house during the church social, aren't you?" No one answered. "Damn it!" Collins paced the room. "That's illegal. That's breaking and entering. I can't condone it. I can't help you." "We're not asking you to," Nathan said. "But I can be elsewhere tomorrow night. I can be on the other side of town responding to a report of a disturbance that doesn't actually exist." Collins stopped pacing and looked at them. "You get me, I can't help you. But I don't have to stop you either." Hope flared in Claire's chest. "There's one more thing," Collins said. "Something you should know about Victoria." "What?" "There was another woman, before you, before your father. Victoria was married to a man named Walter Baines, rich cattle rancher up north. He died sudden, fell off his horse, they said, broke his neck." Claire felt cold. "You think she killed him too?" "I think it's mighty convenient that Victoria has had 2 wealthy husbands die unexpectedly, leaving everything to her." Collins pulled out a folded paper. "I did some digging, found the probate records from Baines' estate. His children contested the will, said it was forged, but they couldn't prove it, and Victoria got everything." He handed the paper to Nathan. "That's the name of Baines's lawyer, man named Frederick Walsh. He's in Cheyenne now. If anyone knows Victoria's history, it's him." Nathan took the paper. "Why are you helping us?" Collins was quiet for a moment. "Because I got a daughter. She's 10 years old. And I keep thinking, what if something happened to me and my wife? What if someone like Victoria got their hooks into my girl? I'd want someone to help her, someone to stand up and do the right thing." He looked at Claire. "So I'm doing the right thing. Finally." After Collins left, they sat in silence, processing everything. "2 husbands," Ben said finally. "Both dead. Both left everything to her." "She's done this before," Claire whispered. "She's perfected it." Nathan stood. "Then tomorrow night we end it. We get that will. We get the proof. And we make sure Victoria Dawson never hurts anyone again." Claire looked around at these people who had become her unlikely family. Nathan with his haunted eyes and protective instincts, Ben with his quiet wisdom and unflinching loyalty, Davy with his serious face and brave heart, even Deputy Collins finding his courage after years of looking away. "Tomorrow night," she said, "we take back what's mine." And in that moment, sitting in that small ranch house with the morning sun streaming through the windows, Claire Dawson felt something she hadn't felt in 5 years. She felt ready to fight. Saturday arrived with cloudless skies and heat that shimmered off the Wyoming plains like water. Claire stood on the porch of Nathan's ranch house watching the sun climb higher, knowing that when it set tonight, everything would change. The plan was simple, dangerously simple. At 6 o'clock, the church social would begin. Victoria would be there, dressed in her finest, playing the role of respectable widow. The house would be empty for exactly 2 hours. Maybe less, if Victoria's suspicions were high. 2 hours to break in, find the will, get out, ride for Cheyenne. 2 hours to reclaim 5 years of stolen life. Nathan emerged from the barn, checking the saddles one more time. Ben was securing supplies in the saddlebags: food, water, ammunition, everything they would need for a hard ride to the territorial capital. Davy sat on the porch steps trying to look brave. Claire sat down beside him. "You scared Miss Claire." "Terrified." The boy looked up at her, surprised by the honesty. "But you're still gonna do it?" "Yes." "Why?" Claire thought about the question. Really thought about it. "Because some things are worth being scared for. My father gave me that land. Victoria stole it. And if I don't stand up for what's right, who will?" Davy nodded slowly. "My pa used to say something like that, before he died. Said a man's got to stand for something or he'll fall for anything. Your pa was right. You think you'll come back, after all this?" Claire looked at the boy, at his serious eyes and his too old face. "I don't know, Davy, but I promise I'll try." Nathan called from the barn. "Time to go." The ride into town was tense. They took the long route again, staying off main roads. As they approached Ashford Creek from the east, the church bells began to ring. 6 o'clock. The social was starting. They tied their horses in a grove of trees half a mile from the Dawson house. From there they would go on foot. Less noise. Easier to hide. Dr. Bradford was waiting for them at the rendezvous point, a small abandoned shed near the edge of town. The old man looked pale but determined. "She's there," he reported. "I saw her arrive 20 minutes ago. Half the town's at that social." "Good." Nathan checked his pocket watch. "That gives us until 8, maybe 7:30 to be safe. Everyone clear on the plan." They had gone over it a dozen times, but Nathan reviewed it once more. Claire would lead them to the house. She knew the layout best. Nathan would pick the locks. Dr. Bradford would keep watch from the street. If anyone approached, he would signal. 2 quick whistles. Ben had stayed at the ranch with Davy. Someone needed to be there in case Collins came early, in case something went wrong. They moved through the gathering dusk like shadows. The Dawson house rose before them, 3 stories of white-painted wood and dark windows. Claire's childhood home. Now it looked like a prison. The back door was their target, less visible from the street. Nathan knelt in front of it, pulling lockpicks from his pocket. His hands were steady, practiced. "Where did you learn to do that?" Claire whispered. "War teaches you a lot of things you wish you didn't know." The lock clicked. The door swung open on silent hinges. They were in. The kitchen was exactly as Claire remembered it. The same table where she had eaten breakfast 1,000 times with her father. The same stove where she had learned to cook. The same window where she had stood washing dishes while dreaming of the future. A future that had been stolen from her. Nathan touched her arm. "You all right?" "Yes. The study is this way." They moved through the house like ghosts. Every creak of the floorboard sounded like thunder. Every shadow could have been Victoria returning early. Claire's heart hammered so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. The study door was locked. Of course it was. Nathan went to work on this lock too. It took longer. The mechanism was more complex. Claire counted seconds in her head. How much time had passed? 5 minutes. 10. Finally, the lock gave way. The door opened. Her father's study looked frozen in time. His desk, his chair, his books lining the walls. Victoria had preserved it like a shrine, or a trophy. "The cabinet," Claire said, pointing. "Third drawer." Nathan crossed to it, tried the drawer, locked again. "We need another key." Claire's mind raced. Where would Victoria keep it? She had been in this study 1,000 times as a child. Her father had hidden things, important things. He always said the best hiding place was in plain sight. Her eyes fell on the desk. The center drawer was slightly open, not much, just a crack. But her father had been meticulous. He never left drawers open. Claire moved to the desk and pulled the drawer fully open. Empty. But the bottom didn't look right. Too shallow. She pressed down on one corner. The false bottom lifted. Underneath a small brass key. Nathan. He took the key. It fit the cabinet lock perfectly. The third drawer slid open. Papers. Stacks of them. Legal documents. Letters. Contracts. And at the very bottom, wrapped in oilcloth, a single folded page with a wax seal. Her father's seal. Claire's hands shook as she reached for it. The paper was yellowed slightly with age. The seal was intact. No one had opened this document since her father had sealed it 5 years ago. She broke the seal with trembling fingers and unfolded the paper. There in her father's handwriting, still strong despite his illness, "I, Robert William Dawson, being of sound mind and body, do hereby bequeath all my worldly possessions, lands, properties, and monetary assets to my beloved daughter Claire Rose Dawson, with no conditions, restrictions, or guardianship imposed." The date, 3 days before he died, witnessed by Dr. Thomas Bradford and Sarah Mitchell. Claire pressed the document to her chest. 5 years. 5 years of believing she was worthless. 5 years of thinking her father had abandoned her. And here was the truth. He had loved her. He had left her everything. Victoria had stolen it all. "Claire," Nathan's voice was urgent. "We need to go. Now." But Claire couldn't move. She stared at the open drawer, at the other papers inside. Something else caught her eye. A small ledger. She pulled it out. The pages were filled with entries in Victoria's handwriting. Purchases. Made with Claire's money. Dresses, jewelry, furniture. Trips to Denver and San Francisco. Thousands of dollars spent on luxuries while Claire had worn rags and gone hungry. And there on one of the pages a receipt. From an apothecary in Laramie. For rat poison. Dated 2 days before Robert Dawson's death. "Oh, God." Claire's voice broke. "She really did kill him." Nathan took the ledger, his face grim. "We're taking this too." A sound from downstairs. The front door opening. They froze. Footsteps in the hallway. Not hurrying. Steady. Confident. And then Victoria's voice, cold and amused. "I know you're in here, Claire. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? Did you think I wouldn't have someone watching?" Nathan grabbed Claire's arm. His eyes scanned the room. One window, one door. They were trapped. Victoria's footsteps came closer. Come out wherever you are. Let's discuss this like civilized people." Nathan moved to the window, looked out. A 15-foot drop to the garden below. Doable, but they would be exposed. Easy targets. The study door opened. Victoria stood in the doorway. She wasn't alone. 2 men flanked her. Big, armed. The kind of men who did violence for money. "Hello, stepdaughter." Victoria's smile was vicious. "Breaking into my home, that's a crime, you know." Nathan stepped in front of Claire. His hand went to his gun. "I wouldn't." One of Victoria's men had a rifle aimed at Nathan's chest. "Not unless you want to die in this room." "Let us go, Victoria." Claire's voice shook but held. "You've already lost. We have the will. We have the ledger. We have proof of everything you've done." "Do you—" Victoria's eyes glittered. "I've been playing this game a lot longer than you, child. Do you think I didn't prepare for this possibility?" She held up a piece of paper. "That will you're holding? You think you're clever finding it, but I have witnesses who will say your father was delirious when he signed it. I have doctors who will testify he lacked capacity. What you have proves nothing without corroboration." Claire's heart sank. But the handwriting, Nathan said. The seal. Can all be faked by someone with enough skill and money. Victoria took a step into the room. I learned my lesson with my first husband. Always have a backup plan. Always anticipate betrayal. First husband? Claire repeated. Walter Baines. Victoria's smile faltered, just for a moment. So you've been doing your homework. Good for you. You killed him too, didn't you? Just like you killed my father. Killed is such an ugly word. I prefer facilitated their departure. Victoria's mask slipped further. For the first time, Claire saw what lay beneath. Not just cruelty. Madness. They were weak, both of them. Walter with his drinking. Your father with his soft heart. They would have lost everything. I saved what they built. You stole it. I earned it. Victoria's voice rose. Do you know what it's like to have nothing, to watch the man you loved drink away your future, to be left with debts and shame and nowhere to go? Her composure cracked. I clawed my way out of that hole. I made myself into someone people respected, and I will not go back to being nothing. Not for you, not for anyone. It was the most honest thing Victoria had ever said to her, and in that honesty, Claire saw the broken woman beneath the monster. Someone who had been hurt so badly that she had twisted into something unrecognizable. But understanding didn't mean forgiveness. Give me the will, Victoria demanded, and the ledger, and maybe I'll let you walk away from this. No. Claire held the documents tighter. This ends tonight. Victoria's face went cold. She nodded to her men. Take them. Everything happened at once. Nathan drew his gun and fired. Not at the men. At the lamp on the desk. It exploded in a burst of flame and broken glass. The room plunged into chaos. Run! Nathan grabbed Claire's hand and pulled her toward the window. Behind them, Victoria screamed orders. Gunshots. Wood splintering. Nathan kicked the window. Glass shattered. He threw Claire through first, then dove after her. They hit the ground hard. Claire felt something in her ankle twist, but adrenaline kept her moving. Nathan was up instantly, hauling her to her feet. More gunshots from the house. A bullet kicked up dirt near Claire's feet. They ran through the garden, through the gate, into the streets of Ashford Creek. Behind them, Victoria's men gave chase. Nathan pulled Claire into an alley. They pressed against the wall, breathing hard. Footsteps pounded past their hiding spot. Dr. Bradford, Claire gasped. We have to warn him. He'll be fine. He's smart enough to get clear. Nathan checked the street. We need to get to the horses. Can you run? Claire's ankle throbbed, but she had run on worse. Yes. They sprinted through back streets and empty lots. The church social was still going on. Music and laughter drifted from the building. All those people having no idea what was happening just blocks away. They reached the grove where they had left the horses. Dr. Bradford was already there, mounted and ready. Thank God, the old man said. I heard shots. What happened? Victoria was waiting for us. Nathan boosted Claire onto his horse, then swung up behind her. We got the will, but she claims it's a fake. It's not. Bradford's voice was certain. I know Robert's handwriting. I know his seal. That's the real document. Then we ride. Now. They took off at a gallop, leaving Ashford Creek behind them. The sun had fully set now. The moon was just a sliver, giving barely enough light to see the road. They had been riding for maybe 20 minutes when Claire heard it. Hoofbeats behind them, multiple riders, gaining fast. Nathan heard it too. They're coming. We need to lose them. There's a creek about 2 miles ahead, Bradford called. If we can cross it, the water will hide our trail. They pushed the horses harder. Claire clung to the saddle horn, her injured ankle screaming with every jarring stride. The will and ledger were secure in Nathan's saddlebag, all the proof they needed. If they could just reach Cheyenne. The creek appeared ahead wider than Claire expected. Summer rains had swollen it beyond its banks. Can the horses make it? Claire shouted over the thunder of hooves. One way to find out. Nathan kicked his horse forward. The animal plunged into the water. The current caught them immediately, stronger than it looked. The horse struggled to keep its footing on the slippery rocks. Behind them, Bradford followed. His older horse moved more slowly, more carefully. They were halfway across when Claire heard the shot. It echoed across the water like thunder. Bradford's horse screamed. The animal went down, throwing the old doctor into the churning current. "Doc!" Nathan wheeled his horse around. Bradford surfaced, sputtering, being pulled downstream. Nathan urged his horse after him, caught the old man's hand, pulled him up behind Claire, all three of them now on one horse. The pursuers had reached the creek bank. 4 riders. One of them raised a rifle. Nathan fired back. The shot went wild, but it made the men hesitate, just long enough for Nathan to reach the far bank. Their horse scrambled up the muddy slope, laboring under the triple weight, but it was a strong animal. Nathan's best. It carried them up and away from the creek. One of the pursuers tried to follow. His horse made it 3 steps into the water before the current swept its legs out. Horse and rider went under. The other 3 men pulled back, shouting to each other, looking for another crossing point. Nathan didn't wait to see if they found one. He pushed on into the darkness, following trails only he seemed to know. Behind them the sounds of pursuit faded. They rode through the night, hard, fast, stopping only to rest the horse and redistribute weight. Dr. Bradford, soaked and shivering, never complained, just held on and endured. Dawn found them 20 miles from Ashford Creek. The horse was exhausted. They all were. Nathan finally called a halt near a stand of cottonwoods. "We'll rest here for an hour. Let the horse recover." Claire slid off the saddle and immediately collapsed. Her ankle had swollen to twice its normal size. Nathan caught her before she hit the ground. "Let me see." He examined her ankle with gentle hands. "Not broken, but badly sprained. We need to wrap it." Bradford, despite his own ordeal, helped tear strips from his shirt to bind Claire's ankle. The old doctor's hands shook from exhaustion and cold, but his knowledge was sound. "How far to Cheyenne?" Claire asked. "Another day and a half at normal pace," Nathan said. "But we're not at normal pace. The horse can't carry 3 people much longer." "I'll walk," Bradford offered. "You're nearly 70 years old and you nearly drowned an hour ago. You're not walking anywhere." They sat in silence, 3 exhausted people huddled in the growing dawn light. The will was safe, the evidence was secure, but they were still a long way from justice. "We could send someone ahead," Bradford suggested. "Get word to Judge Webb in Cheyenne. Tell him what we have." "And who would we send?" Nathan gestured to the empty landscape around them. "We're in the middle of nowhere." A sound made them all freeze. Hoofbeats, coming from the direction they had traveled. Nathan grabbed his rifle. "Get behind the trees, now!" They scrambled for cover. Nathan took position behind a large cottonwood siding down the barrel at the approaching rider. One rider, alone, moving fast but not carelessly. As the figure came closer, Claire recognized the horse, then the rider. "Ben!" The old man pulled up, breathing hard. "Thank God I found you." "What are you doing here?" Nathan lowered his rifle. "Where's Davy?" "Safe, with a neighbor woman who owes me a favor." Ben dismounted. "I followed you. Figured you might need help. Looks like I was right." Nathan's jaw tightened. "You should have stayed with the boy. Davy's safer where he is than he would be at the ranch, and you need another horse." Ben gestured to his mount. "Fresh, strong, can carry 2 people easy." Relief washed through Claire. With 2 horses they could make much better time. "There was a housekeeper, Sarah Mitchell. She worked for my father for years, but she left right after the funeral. Victoria said she quit, but Sarah loved my father. I never understood why she would just leave. She wrote me one letter after she left, said she knew the truth but was too afraid to speak." "There's more," Ben said. "Before I left, a woman came to the ranch, said she was looking for Claire, said her name was Sarah Mitchell." Claire's heart leaped. "Sarah, she's here. She's in Cheyenne. Heard about what was happening and came to help. She wants to testify about what she saw the night your father died." Dr. Bradford's face lit up. "Sarah will remember. She was there. She helped me care for Robert those last days." "Then we ride for Cheyenne." Nathan stood. We've got the will, we've got the ledger, and now we've got another witness. Victoria's finished." They redistributed weight between the two horses. Claire rode with Nathan, Bradford with Ben. The pace picked up immediately. They rode through that day and into the night, stopping only when the horses absolutely needed rest. By the next morning, the buildings of Cheyenne rose on the horizon like a promise. Cheyenne was everything Ashford Creek was not: big, bustling, full of people who didn't know or care about small-town politics. The territorial courthouse stood on Main Street, an imposing building of brick and stone. They found Sarah Mitchell at a boarding house near the courthouse. She was older than Claire remembered, with gray streaking her dark hair and lines around her eyes. But when she saw Claire, she burst into tears. "Oh, child, look what that woman did to you." Sarah pulled Claire into a fierce hug. "I should have stayed. I should have fought for you. I was a coward." "You're here now," Claire said. "That's what matters." Sarah had already contacted Judge Harrison Webb. The territorial judge was expecting them that afternoon. He had agreed to hear their case personally. They cleaned up as best they could at the boarding house. Nathan found a store willing to extend credit and bought Claire a simple dress. Nothing fancy, but clean and whole. The first new dress she had owned in 5 years. At 2 o'clock they assembled at the courthouse. Judge Webb's chambers were on the second floor. The clerk led them into a large office lined with law books. Judge Harrison Webb was in his late 50s, with a white beard and sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. He listened as they presented their evidence: the original will, the ledger showing Victoria's embezzlement, the receipt for rat poison, Dr. Bradford's testimony, Sarah's testimony. He examined every document carefully, read every word, asked questions that showed a keen legal mind. Finally, he sat back in his chair. "This is extraordinary. If what you're telling me is true, Mrs. Dawson has committed fraud on a massive scale, possibly murder." "It's all true, Your Honor," Claire said. "Every word. The problem is jurisdiction. The alleged crimes took place in Ashford Creek. Under Wyoming territorial law, the local court has primary authority." "The local court is corrupt," Nathan said flatly. "Judge Harmon is Victoria's cousin. He'll bury this evidence." "I'm aware of Judge Harmon's reputation." Webb tapped his fingers on his desk. "But I can't simply override another judge's authority without cause." Claire felt despair rising. They had come so far, had risked so much, and now legal technicalities were going to let Victoria win anyway. "However," Webb continued, "I can issue an emergency order freezing the Dawson estate pending a full investigation. I can also issue a warrant for Mrs. Dawson's arrest on suspicion of fraud and forgery. Those are within my authority as a territorial judge." Hope flickered. "And then what?" "Then we have a formal hearing, here in Cheyenne under my jurisdiction. I'll hear testimony from both sides, examine all evidence, and make a ruling based on territorial law, not local politics." He pulled paper toward him and began writing. "I'll also order the exhumation of Robert Dawson's body. If there's poison in his system, it will still be detectable after 5 years. That will settle the murder question definitively." Claire felt tears on her cheeks. "Thank you, Your Honor." "Don't thank me yet, Miss Dawson. This is just the beginning. Mrs. Dawson will fight back. She has resources, connections. This won't be easy." "I don't care about easy," Claire said. "I care about justice." Webb smiled slightly. "Then you've come to the right place." The hearing was set for 1 week later. In the meantime, Victoria was to be located and arrested. The estate was frozen. Claire couldn't access any of the money or property, but neither could Victoria. They found rooms at the boarding house. That night, Claire couldn't sleep. Too much had happened too fast. She stood at the window of her small room looking out at the dark streets of Cheyenne. A soft knock on the door. "Claire, you awake?" Nathan's voice. Claire opened the door. He stood in the hallway, still fully dressed. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asked. "Too much to think about." He paused. "Can I come in? I want to talk to you about something." Claire stepped aside. Nathan entered, leaving the door open for propriety. He moved to the window, standing beside her. "You did it," he said quietly. "You got the evidence. You got the judge to listen. You're going to get your life back." "Not alone," Claire said. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." "Yeah, you could have. Maybe not the same way, but you would have found a way. You're stronger than you think." "I don't feel strong." "That's because you're still in it. When it's over, when you can look back, you'll see how much strength it took." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Nathan spoke again, his voice different, uncertain. "When this is over, when you get your father's ranch back, you're going to have a lot of choices. You could run it yourself, hire hands, build it back up, or you could sell it, start fresh somewhere else. The point is, you'll be free to choose." "I know. And whatever you choose, I'll support it. But I want you to know something first." He turned to face her. "These past few days with you helping you fight for what's yours, it's made me feel alive again. For the first time since Emily and David died, I feel like I'm doing something that matters." Claire's heart started racing. "I'm not saying this to pressure you or obligate you," Nathan continued. "You don't owe me anything. I helped you because it was the right thing to do. But I also helped you because from the moment I saw you on that road, something in me recognized something in you. Two broken people who refused to stay broken." "Nathan, let me finish." He took a breath. "What I'm saying is, when this is over, if you wanted company rebuilding that ranch, if you wanted a partner in the work and in life, I'd like that to be me. Not because you need rescuing, but because I think we could build something good together. Something that honors the people we've lost and the people we're trying to become." Claire looked up at him. This man who had stopped when he could have ridden past, who had fought for her when everyone else turned away, who had shown her that not all men were like Victoria, that there was still kindness and courage and honor in the world. "You're asking me to marry you. Eventually. Not right now. You need time to find out who you are without Victoria controlling everything. Time to heal. Time to choose freely." He smiled. "But yeah, eventually, if you'll have me, I'm asking." Claire felt something warm spreading through her chest. Something she had thought Victoria had killed years ago. Hope. Real hope. Not just for justice or freedom, but for a future. For happiness. "Ask me again when this is over," she said. "When I'm standing on my own land as a free woman. Ask me then." "I will." The week passed in a blur of preparation. They met with a lawyer Judge Webb recommended, went over their testimony again and again, prepared for every question Victoria's lawyer might ask. 3 days before the hearing, word came that Victoria had been arrested trying to board a train to Mexico. She had disguised herself as a widow in mourning, but someone recognized her voice. She was brought back to Cheyenne in shackles. The courthouse was packed on the day of the hearing. News had spread. The case of the poor orphan girl fighting her evil stepmother had captured public imagination. People came from all over the territory to watch. Victoria sat at the defendant's table with her expensive lawyer, Mr. Silas Whitmore. She looked calm, composed, like this was all a minor inconvenience. The hearing stretched over 3 weeks. Victoria's lawyer tried every trick, claimed Dr. Bradford was senile, suggested Sarah was lying for money, implied Nathan had manipulated Claire for access to her inheritance. But the evidence was overwhelming. The original will, the handwriting analysis proving it was genuine, and Victoria's probated will was forged. The ledger showing embezzlement, the poison receipt, the testimony of 3 respected witnesses. 2 weeks into the proceedings, after the court had ordered the exhumation, the toxicology results finally arrived. Robert Dawson's body contained lethal levels of arsenic, the same poison on Victoria's receipt. When Judge Webb read those results aloud, Victoria's composure finally cracked. She stood up screaming at the judge, at Claire, at everyone. "I earned that money. I saved that pathetic ranch. Robert was weak. He would have lost everything. I made something of that place." Her lawyer tried to calm her, but Victoria pushed him away. "You all judged me, all my life. People like you looked down on me, called me trash, said I wasn't good enough. Well, I made myself good enough. I took what I deserved." "Mrs. Dawson," Judge Webb's voice cut through her tirade like a blade, You are making a confession to murder in open court. I strongly advise you to stop talking." But Victoria was beyond reason now. Years of maintaining a perfect facade had shattered. All the ugliness poured out. "I killed him. Yes, I gave him poison. He was dying anyway. The fever was going to take him. I just hurried it along, and I'd do it again." The courtroom erupted. The judge banged his gavel. "Order. Order in this court." Security grabbed Victoria, restraining her as she continued to scream. Judge Webb waited until she was silent. Then he spoke with grave finality. "Victoria Dawson, you have confessed to the murder of Robert William Dawson. You have been proven to have committed fraud, forgery, embezzlement, and abuse. I hereby sentence you to 20 years of hard labor in the Territorial Prison." He turned to Claire. "I also rule that the original will of Robert Dawson is valid and legally binding. All property, lands, and assets are hereby returned to their rightful owner, Claire Rose Dawson, effective immediately." The gavel came down. Claire sat frozen, unable to process what had just happened. 20 years. Victoria would be 70 when she got out, if she lived that long, and Claire was free. Really, truly free. Nathan's hand found hers under the table. She gripped it tight, anchoring herself to this moment, to this reality. As Victoria was led away in chains, she stopped near Claire's table. For one last moment the two women locked eyes. "You think you've won," Victoria hissed, "but you'll become just like me. When life hurts you enough, when people betray you enough, you'll do whatever it takes to survive. You'll see." Claire stood, looked her stepmother in the eye, and spoke the truth she had learned through all of this. "No, I won't. Because every day I choose to be different than you. I choose kindness over cruelty. I choose honesty over lies. I choose to build instead of destroy." She paused. "That's the difference between us, Victoria. You gave up on being good. I never will." Victoria said nothing. What could she say? She had lost, completely and utterly. Guards led her away. Claire never saw her again. The courthouse erupted in cheers as Judge Webb declared the hearing concluded. People Claire didn't even know came up to congratulate her, to tell her they believed in her, to say they were proud of her courage. Outside in the bright afternoon sun, Claire stood with Nathan, Ben, Dr. Bradford, and Sarah, her unlikely family, the people who had believed in her when no one else would. "What now?" Ben asked. Claire looked at them. "These good people. Now we go home, to Ashford Creek, to the ranch, and we rebuild." The ride back to Ashford Creek took 2 days. Word had already spread ahead of them. By the time they arrived, half the town was waiting. Mrs. Foster stood on the steps of her general store, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, Claire. I should have helped you. I should have said something." Other voices echoed the sentiment. People who had watched Claire suffer now lined up to apologize, to make amends, to ask forgiveness. Claire could have been bitter, could have turned them all away. But she thought about what Victoria had become, twisted by pain and anger until there was nothing good left. "I forgive you," Claire said to each person who apologized, "but don't let it happen again. When you see someone suffering, speak up, stand up, be brave." They promised they would. Whether they kept those promises remained to be seen. But at least the words were spoken. The Dawson Ranch was in worse condition than Claire remembered. Victoria had let it fall into disrepair, spending money on herself instead of maintenance. Fences sagged, buildings needed paint. The fields had gone to seed. But it was hers, every acre, every building, every fence post. Hers. Nathan, Ben, and even young Davy pitched in to help. Dr. Bradford brought supplies. Sarah moved into her old room in the house, taking up her role as housekeeper again, but this time as family, not hired help. The town began sending people to help. Men who owed Claire's father old debts. Women who felt guilty for their silence. Young people who admired Claire's courage. Slowly, piece by piece, the ranch came back to life. 3 months after the trial, on a clear October evening, Claire stood on the porch watching the sunset paint the Wyoming sky in brilliant colors. The first harvest was in. The fences were mended. the buildings repaired, the ranch was whole again. Nathan came up behind her. "Got a minute?" "Always." He took her hand and led her down the porch steps into the garden her mother had planted 30 years ago. Claire had spent weeks restoring it. Now roses bloomed despite the autumn chill. Nathan stopped in the center of the garden, reached into his pocket, pulled out a small box. "3 months ago I told you to ask me again when you were standing on your own land as a free woman. Well, here you are, free, strong, everything you were meant to be." He opened the box. Inside was a simple gold band, worn smooth with age. "This was my mother's ring. She wore it every day of her marriage to my father, 40 years, through good times and hard times, through poverty and plenty, through sickness and health." He took the ring out, held it up. "Claire Rose Dawson, will you marry me? Not because you need me, not because you owe me, but because we choose each other, because we're better together than apart." Claire looked at this man, this good, brave, broken, beautiful man, who had saved her life and then taught her to save herself, who had fought beside her and never once tried to fight for her. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll marry you." He slipped the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly. Then he kissed her soft and sweet and full of promise while the Wyoming sunset blazed around them. They were married 1 month later in the little church in Ashford Creek. Dr. Bradford walked Claire down the aisle. Ben stood as Nathan's best man. Davy carried the rings. Sarah cried through the entire ceremony. Half the town attended. The other half sent gifts. Even those who couldn't face Claire directly wanted to be part of her happiness. The ceremony was simple, traditional, perfect. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, the church erupted in cheers. Claire Reed walked out of that church on her husband's arm into a future she had earned through courage and faith and refusing to give up. That night at the ranch house that was now their home, Nathan found Claire standing at the nursery window, the same window where as a child she had pressed her face and dreamed of freedom. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "About my father, how much he would have loved this. Loved you, loved knowing I'm happy. He knows." Nathan wrapped his arms around her. "Wherever he is, he knows." They stood there together as stars filled the Wyoming sky. Two broken people who had found each other and chosen to heal together. 1 year later, Claire gave birth to a daughter. They named her Emily Rose Reed, Emily for Nathan's first wife, Rose for Claire's mother, a bridge between past and future, a promise that love survives even death. Nathan held his daughter with tears streaming down his face. "She's perfect." "She is," Claire agreed, "and she'll grow up knowing her worth, knowing she's loved, knowing that good people exist and courage matters and justice, though sometimes slow, always comes." As the sun rose on their first full day as a family of 3, Claire thought about everything that had brought them to this moment. The pain, the struggle, the fear, the triumph. She thought about Victoria rotting in a prison cell destroyed by her own bitterness, and she thought about her father's words spoken so long ago. "Worth is earned, Ellie girl, not given. You earn it through who you choose to be." Claire had chosen. Every day she had chosen courage over fear, chosen kindness over bitterness, chosen to fight for what was right even when it seemed impossible. And in choosing she had found not just justice, but joy, not just freedom, but family, not just survival, but life. True life, hard-won, deeply felt, absolutely earned. Some people are meant to stay broken. Some people let pain twist them into monsters. But some people, the rare ones, the brave ones, refuse to let darkness win. They rise from the ashes. They rebuild from ruins. They turn suffering into strength and grief into grace. Claire Dawson had been thrown away like trash left to die on a dusty road. Claire Reed knew exactly what she was worth, and she would spend the rest of her days teaching her daughter the same truth. Worth is not given by circumstance or stolen by cruelty. Worth is earned through character, through choice, through the daily decision to be better than what the world makes you. And that worth, once truly earned, can never be taken away.